We have with us a great teacher, a great teacher who is going to change our entire life. We have with us Swami Kriyananda. Welcome, Swamiji.
Thank you.
Swamiji, I would love to request you to start your program with a wonderful, lovely poem.
Om Taryambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityormokshiyamamritat Swaha. And with Swaha I should be throwing things into the fire of Yajna. However, what we need to do is throw our own egos into that fire. Yajna is self-offering to the divine.
Oh.
God bless you.
Thank you so much. So you explained us about the things that you just spoke out. We have got a query waiting for you. Let's start with the query. Before starting up the query, I would just like to tell you one thing. We are getting overwhelming response from throughout the country. People are so glad to speak to you. They are so happy with the answers that you have been giving them.
Well, I'm very happy for that.
Thank you so much, sir. You may please ask your question. Hello.
My name is Sonia Verma from Himachal. Acha, Swamiji, why is Sanskrit considered a holy language?
You know, Sanskrit was originated in an age where people's consciousness was higher than it is now. It was originated in an age of spirituality. And the language that people speak is a manifestation of their consciousness. I remember I had to be on a television program, I won't say the country, because I had to be asked questions and I had no chance to ask, could you explain? I had no chance to restate my answers. I had just 5 minutes to answer. So I had to put myself in tune with that country, and I just told myself I'm a member of that country. I am that nationality. And I found that with that thought, I was able to understand and answer the questions correctly. But I noticed at the end, I didn't like being a member of that country. There was too much ego in the sounds. And every language that people speak, I've had the opportunity to speak 9 languages in my life. And I found that if you tune into the consciousness of the people, it's much easier, in fact, relatively easy to learn that language. Sanskrit has come down from an age when people were basically spiritual. It is actually the original language, and all languages that have evolved since then have evolved in lower ages. You know, in Africa, 16 miles away from your own village, people speak what seems like a completely different language. And everything that you say, you know, it's very interesting to notice, for instance, your consonants are, they express your willpower. And so people who have strong willpower will talk with very strong consonants. And people who have more heart quality, they talk more with vowels and so on. And so the tone of inflection, all these things, the nasal sound has something to do with ego consciousness. And in that way, if you know the language, it's easy, as I said, it's easy to understand the people. And Sanskrit has power. Apart from other vibrations in Sanskrit, there's 2 things really, power and joy. It is a holy language because it was created by holy people in a holy time in history. And that's why the great mantras are in Sanskrit, and they have power.
That's really true, Swamiji. Thank you so much for your wonderful answer. A person is still waiting for his call to be
and don't
taken
ask me
forward.
what country that was that I... Okay.
You may please put across your question.
My name is Ashok. I'm speaking from Bhubaneswar. Are you in favor of technology, or do you think the world would be better after if we return to a simpler, even a more primitive way of life?
Well, to be perfectly frank, I just don't see that there's any point in thinking about what should be when it isn't. I know that Gandhi wanted India to go back to the simple village life of thousands of years ago. I have to say that was not a practical desire. India cannot cut itself off from the rest of the world. Look at its size. It's the second biggest country in the world, the biggest democracy in the world. In those days, they were trying to get everybody to speak Hindi. Well, thank God the people in South India rebelled. They said, we know one foreign language already, why should we learn another? And I met Vinoba Bhave, and his first statement to me was, you should learn to lecture in Hindi. Well, I'm all for it, but people don't let me. They talk English. The people I speak to are mostly educated people, and they find it natural to throw English in, even if they're talking Hindi. They may use many English words. So we have to accept what is. Now, with that understanding, mind you, I love the idea of Gandhi. I love the thought of a simple life. I don't like living in cities. And so when I lived in India before, which was from 1958 to 62, I told a friend of mine that we need cars in India. Now, that was certainly not what I really wanted, but I knew it was necessary. When Henry Ford invented the kind of car and the method of production by mass production to produce cars, he opened up the whole country of America because they had to build roads, and the roads united the towns, and so America became one country despite its huge size. It's 3 times the size of India. India needs that, and I don't say I like it, but I don't see how it can avoid what is real. If you can, with technology, do things and achieve things that you can't without it, you're going to use it whether I tell you to or not. Technology is what we have today. We have to learn to make the best of it. What we need to learn to do is, in all ologies, to be dharmic. And that is possible. And that is what most Indians, I don't say most Indians, but it is a need here. To learn how to be a successful businessman, to learn how to do all the things. Indians have a natural head for these things. But to learn to do it with dharma, that is my job in my life, and other people like me. It's if you can live dharmically, I think you will begin to find naturally you want to live more simply. And I do not believe that technology is the answer, because with mind power we can accomplish so much that now people think they need machinery for. This is only a phase, and I don't think it will be very long lasting, but it will last for now. And we have to accept present realities if we are to grow beyond them to higher ones. So, am I for technology? Yes and no. I don't really like it, but it's here to stay, and we might as well learn to live with it instead of pretending things were different from what they are.
That's really so inspiring. Yeah, that's true.
We must be realists.
We usually think that whatever comes in our life, we should think beyond that. But whatever life comes with, we should accept it and then go ahead with
That's
it.
right. You have to
That's
accept
true.
what is before you can go on to something better.
That's really true. Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
wonderful answer. We have a query ready for you.
Okay.
Yeah, you may please ask your question.
Namaskar. I am Dinesh from Calcutta. I want to know, could you explain what is avatar is? I have heard the word defined, but I do not really understand.
What was
He's
that
asking about
question?
avatar.
What is an avatar?
Yeah.
There is a lot of misunderstanding on the subject of avatar. It means a divine incarnation, but people think it means an incarnation of Vishnu, or especially Vishnu. But
Yeah.
really what it means is this, that when the soul finally achieves the state of moksha, most people, when they go into that state, merge in God. But if they, at that stage, think back at all the poor people in this world who are struggling and suffering, and they have this desire, it's not a desire because you're thinking of other people, not of yourself. Such desires are good. The desire for God is good. Any desire that liberates you from ego is good. It's expanding. And so those few, very few, who have this desire, if they come back into this world completely free, without any karma of the past or present, a Jivan Mukta who reaches the point of being a Param Mukta because he has overcome all his past karma, he becomes a complete Siddha. Usually they go into Brahman and become one with him, but a very few out of their compassion hang on to that one desireless desire to want to help other people. That is an avatar, and when he comes back, he can help many, many more people. He can help a whole civilization. And there are such people. Some of them live in the Himalayas, they're Amar, they're deathless. Others, my Guru was such a man. Other great souls have been. And they come back here only for the sake of us poor struggling people. Without them, where would we be? So thank God for them.
It's really wonderful. It's very inspiring. Yeah, we have a caller waiting for you. Yeah, you may please ask your question.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
I am Gajendra from Balangir. A few years ago, the Catholic Church in Rome issued a declaration saying it was not spiritually correct to participate yoga. I thought any religion could benefit from yoga. What do you say?
I was living in Italy when that declaration was made. And I say that one reason Hinduism is the greatest religion in the world, and I don't mean it in a sectarian way, but one reason that it alone teaches moksha and doesn't teach these little grades up to it. Jesus Christ was a great avatar, so was Buddha, but their followers have fallen away from it, and I think that the reason this religion has been kept pure in India is because it has not been organized. I think that
It's an unorganized way.
the organization, I mean, who's going to rise in an organization?
Okay.
Somebody who thinks in church terms, not in terms of Brahman and all these things. And somebody who is a good administrator may not be a good yogi.
That's true.
And so people rise, and naturally as they rise, they begin to favor people who are like them. And so the people who rise to the top are the flotsam. So I know, I was in Italy, we have an ashram and a community in Italy, and I was very sad about that announcement. It's absolute nonsense, and it's entirely based on selfishness. They're afraid of losing followers. There's no need to. They have a wonderful church, they have a wonderful religion, and my Guru did not try to take people away from their own paths. Islam, Buddhism, Catholicism, whatever it might be. He said that you can find God in your own heart. That is where He is. You don't have to convert to anything. But with this kind of consciousness, what it means is that they're afraid. They're trying to protect something. And they're talking absolute nonsense. There's no truth to it. There is nothing in yoga that is sectarian. Anybody, it's not only that they can practice yoga, everybody does practice yoga, but because they don't know what they're doing, therefore they can't explore what they know. But many things that people understand intuitively are a part of yoga. I say yoga is for everybody.
Yoga is for everybody and everybody should practice it. You
Yeah,
emphasize
everybody
more on
should
yoga.
do something of it. Everybody does do something with it. But I'm not trying to tell anybody to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm saying for their own happiness, they need to raise their consciousness. Yoga can show you how to do it.
That's
There
really
may be
true.
other ways, but it's a very mathematically correct and practical method.
That's really wonderful. We have got a query waiting, and then I'm going to ask you my questions because even I'm having lots and lots to ask you. But right now, there's a caller who wants to ask you something. Yeah, you may please ask your question.
Swamiji, I'm Vani from T. Acha Swamiji, can mankind influence the weather? Is there such a thing, for example, as a rain dance?
I could not understand.
She's asking, can mankind influence weather?
Oh, mankind does influence weather.
Yeah.
Look at how the world is today with earthquakes and floods and tsunamis, and all of this is a direct reflection of human nature and the violence and turmoil in human nature. You know, I was in Yucatan in Mexico many years ago, and I had a guide who was himself a Mayan. And I said, do you know if the Mayans did rain dances? He said, it's interesting you should say that. I was traveling in the jungles of Yucatan, and I came to a village where there had been a drought for several months and no rain, and people were getting very concerned. And I came upon this village where they were doing an ancient Mayan rain dance. And I stopped to watch, just sort of curious. And at the end of this dance, all of a sudden, out of a blue sky, these clouds gathered. There was such a thunderburst, everybody had to rush for cover. But it is true that you can influence the weather by your thinking. We do influence it all the time. And if we had harmony, there would be harmony also in the weather. This world is a reflection, is made of consciousness. And because man's consciousness is more aware and more powerful than other levels of consciousness, therefore man has much more of an effect on the weather than he realizes.
That's really so inspiring, Swamiji. Swamiji, even I had a personal question.
Yes.
We usually talk about faith, but we hardly know how to maintain our faith. I mean, I would love to...
Faith or fate?
Faith.
Faith.
Faith on
Okay.
God.
Okay.
Yeah, a trust.
Uh-huh.
So how to maintain that? But because when one God listens us, we feel, okay, God is so nice, He's so helpful. Whenever we beg for something, He's ready to give away. But on the other way, when He doesn't listen to us, when He doesn't give whatever we are looking around for, we are so angry, we are so annoyed. But this is not the right way to maintain a faith on God. How to maintain that?
Well, it's the sort of, you say we, and I don't want to
We means
offend
I'm talking
you.
about me. I'm
I
talking
don't
about
want to
myself.
offend you, but the truth is that this is a childish attitude.
That's really true. That's really true. But it
Children
happens with...
want their parents to give them what they want, and they get into tantrums if their parents do not give them what they want. And so a little child wants a lot of candy, but the parent knows it's not going to be good for it to have all that candy. And so the child gets upset. And so we get upset because God gives us tests. I have said this before on this program, and it is the truth. I have found it in my life again and again, that when I put my life in His hands, He doesn't always give them what I thought. He may give me what I didn't want, but I've always found that it's for my best. And if I look back over my long life, I'm in my 80th year now, moderately long life, I have to say that every suffering I have been through has been a great blessing. I am grateful. You don't feel gratitude at the beginning, and that is why the Bhagavad Gita, in the first stanza, remember Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya, my children, the Kauravas, and the children of Pandu,
Yeah.
what did they on the battlefield? Well, naturally, if you ask that question, you're going to ask, what are they doing? Which side is winning? What team is winning, kind of thing. But when you go through these tests, you don't know at the time. It's afterwards that you ask that question. And so the Gita from the very first stanza is saying that it's a psychological war. And it's at the end of the war, you look back and you say, which side won today? I was tested in my honesty. Did I stick to my guns, and was I truly honest? And from that we can say which side won, the good side or the bad side, because these warriors are inside us.
True.
The Kauravas are those tendencies inside us. Duryodhana represents material desire. Even Bhishma, who represents the ego, Bhishma has the blessing that he will not die until he gives himself up. So there he is lying at the end of the battle on a bed of arrows. He's been shot full of arrows. He can lie on these arrows. Still he doesn't die because he has that blessing to be able to live until he says, I give up. Well, this is the truth. The ego has to give itself up. No one can take it away from you. But you reach that point where you offer, and this is the supreme yajna which the Gita is talking about again and again, the offering of the self into the infinite. This is yajna. And all the other ceremonies, the havan, the puja, everything, the arati, everything is a ceremony symbolizing the offering of your own little ego into the infinite. Now, we have to go through suffering to make us think what life is all about. Without that, we wouldn't think. And because of the suffering, we understand, oh, that's not the direction to go. And so we learn. Suffering is a great blessing, but it's not easy to take it that way as long as we want our will and not His. And when we have His will, I have to say that everything that I have done in my life has been because I couldn't do what I thought I should do. The suffering drove me from that, and I'm very grateful because it has enabled me to understand.
That's wonderful,
It's the
Swamiji.
truth.
That's really wonderful. Very, very inspiring. We have a caller waiting for his turn. Yeah, you may please put on a question.
I'm Rani from Kashmir.
Yeah.
Swamiji, in the infinity of space and time, where do we exist?
There's nowhere in. That's not a very fair question because, first of all, space and time don't really exist. But as long as they seem to exist in this delusion, we exist in them in this delusion. But it's not a reality. In God, everything is in the present tense. And we see time passing, but it's all in the present tense. You know, this is the wonderful thing about moksha. When you think of how vast the universe is, and that our goal spiritually is to become one with everything, it seems like an impossible task. 200 billion galaxies, and we have to become one with all that and one with Him who created all that. And in fact, the physical universe is just a little thing compared to the astral universe. That isn't how it is. When you get down underneath you, as the little, if you can know the complete truth of one atom, you know everything. And you can never know the truth of an atom, but you can know the truth of your own ego. And when you trace your ego to its source and you understand that He is the true self, then suddenly you find yourself knowing everything. You don't have to solve the problems of time and space and all these abstractions which seem so difficult. But you know, people who lived thousands of years ago, really it's now. And people who live in other dimensions, they're all here. It's something that Maya doesn't allow us to see. So in the realm of Maya, you've asked a question that cannot be answered.
Oh, that's wonderful, Swamiji. Swamiji, there's one more question. Like most of our people want to know, you founded Ananda Sangha. They are more into the query, what kind of services does Ananda Sangha do? What kind of help are they going to get in that?
Ananda Sangha is several things. It is a community of people who are dedicated personally to seeking God as Satchidananda.
Right.
Secondly, it is dedicated to helping people to live in community with other people who are seeking God. And it's such a much more wonderful thing. You have much more of a sense of family when you're mixing with other sadhaks.
True.
People who want peace. You find in ordinary villages, people do something wrong, everybody's talking against them. In ordinary families, brother sues brother. So much disharmony among blood families, misunderstandings. I used to think, if I had become a drunk, my relatives would all have said, too bad. But because I became a yogi and a disciple of this great Indian yogi, they all tried to pull me away from it. What is that kind of love? But in a community, I have founded communities, 7 communities in the West, and about 1,000 people live in them. And you have so much harmony there. When somebody does something wrong, everybody tries to help him. They don't just talk about how, oh, he did a wrong thing. They try to help. When there is a couple getting married, everybody pitches in to help them with money so they can go on a honeymoon.
That's
When somebody's in the hospital, they all pitch in to help pay for that and visit him. And you find a level of love that I have not seen in my family. And my family is an unusually happy family. I never in my life saw my parents even argue. So it's not as if I'm talking about a bad family. It was a good family, and yet it exists.
That's true.
It is, I think, the best thing people can do is learn to live with other people who love God. And that's also what Ananda Sangha is. And another thing is that we have schools to train children. It's so important in the first years of a child's life to teach it spirituality, not in a dogmatic way,
Yeah.
but to teach a child that if he lives in a good way, he's happier. And so our children have learned by sharing with each other that they are happier than if they take from each other. And in practical ways, not saying society tells you or God tells you this is what you should do, but because this gives you more fulfillment. Our children, when they change and go from our school to other schools are always shining students and shining leaders in their community. I believe that the schools we have started in the West should be started on a mass scale in India, not government schools, schools where people can be taught spiritual principles, not sectarian. They can be Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, it doesn't matter. These truths, you don't hear any religion ever saying, my children for a change hate each other. They all teach basically the right things. This is what we should teach them, and we should show them that it works. So this is a part of what we do.
Swamiji, I feel as if you are a blessing to mankind, and we are really blessed with
I'll tell
all
you,
the
I've
things
been
that
blessed,
you
and that's why I share the blessing, and otherwise I'm nobody.
Oh, Swamiji,
But my Guru has
it's all
given us
modesty.
something
You're a
worth
real
having.
great personality. We are so much inspired by you. Thank you so much being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.